Four, three, two, one. What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? This is both Nicks from Two Nicks and a Pod coming at you for episode 3, coming at you from both the same location for this podcast. I am excited to be here. We're gonna have a shorter podcast for you guys today, hopefully. Maybe you guys can make it. It might make it a little more digestible. But yeah, I'm pumped. So let's just dive into this thing.
Get it, man. Jump right in.
Nick, what's going on, man? It's been almost a week since maybe not a week, but since we talked last, man. So what's been going on?
Not much, man. Had an exam today. We've had a ton of snow days, man. A lot of classes have been canceled, so that's just been amazing. Able to play a ton of. I had an exam today. It was chill. Yeah, man. Just excited to record this podcast, man.
Yeah, I feel like I got this thing like. Yeah, the second I got this, I was like, dude, we gotta do a podcast, and I was like, yeah, Nick's got his own life too, so I can't every night can't be a podcast night, But dude, I'm excited to be here, man. So
that's how
man.
A couple days, man. I'm getting mine soon, so
yes, I think the next podcast we both should have these fascinating new devices that can record audio and record video, and they're really nice. So, but yeah, man. So. Let's get into it, dude. I feel like once we get the ball rolling, man, this is going to be insane. So, dude, let's start, man. I watched a podcast this week. People probably know that I've been talking about this guy named Andrew Yang. All right, and I guess we'll start here. He was talking about the changes that are going on in the current job market, and the changes that are going on in the labor force, and the changes that are going on in the economy. And he painted a very bleak outlook about the future. I don't want to say it's depressing, but in a way it is, because I don't think that a lot of people are actually planning accordingly to what is going to actually be happening in the world around us. I just think it's something that we need to be looking at more.
Definitely, man. I don't know if there's anything you want to expand on that. I didn't see the podcast, so if there's anything that you wanted to.
Right. But yeah, I think what he was talking about. I know before this podcast we were talking about a couple things that we could discuss on this podcast, but I think a lot of the stuff that he was talking about could be the breeding ground for the next major recession that we're probably due for.
Definitely, man. I think we've been due for a while, ever since we've had the recovery from the last recession. Everyone has kind of just been waiting, sitting patiently, and then you've got guys like Peter Schiff, who, ever since 2010 or 11, even when we were still barely getting out of the recession, he's like, oh, there's another one, and now here it's 2019 and still saying the same thing. So who knows, man. But a decade of growth like we've had, almost, well, not quite a decade, but for the amount of growth that we've had, it's expected that we start slowing down, especially because most economists say that they don't think economies will be able to grow at the rates that they have in the past, which I don't know, that may be true. They know much more than me, so probably. But yeah, man, the future definitely is bleak, especially, the economy is great right now, but it never lasts, it never lasts. So we'll see. I think the next bubble is probably the student loan bubble, but everyone has been saying that too for a really long time. So we'll just, I don't know, man. We'll see what happens. If people, I don't know. The only sector that really be hurt by the student loan bubble though is the banks, right? If people aren't paying back their student loans, then they're really the only ones. People that loan them the money are the ones that are going to get hurt, and then, that means less loans, restriction of the money supply, by definition. So the economy would shrink. The money shrinks, the economy shrinks. So it makes sense.
Right. I remember this past summer I was driving home from the gym with my friend, and we were just kind of talking about random small talk, and he actually was talking to me about, he's like, to be honest, man, I don't really know what a recession actually is. I don't know what causes it. I don't even know what it means when the economy starts to shrink. I don't know, I don't understand it really. I just know that it happens every so often, and I understood it more than he did, I think, but I had to actually go look at it myself, and I had to realize that it's one of those things where once one sector of the economy shrinks a little bit, that causes it's almost like a domino effect, where like one sector stops hiring as many people, those people aren't putting money back into the economy, and it's not cyclical like it needs to be.
Definitely, man. So the government has a few tools to help combat recessions. Um, so what a recession is, for those that are watching that maybe are not sure or would like a little bit more information, is that a recession is just when the economy produces less in the current year than it did the year before. So the way it's really easy to calculate. So all you have to look at is like GDP is the easiest way. So you look at GDP from the previous year, you compare it to the year you're experiencing, and if the GDP is lower that year than previously, you're in a recession. You can subtract the numbers. So you take the higher GDP, subtract it from the lower one. That gives you it's called a recessionary gap. And the government, and Keynes came up with this idea, um, in theory, and then a lot of people have expanded on it. But essentially, the government, by injecting money into the economy through either deficit spending or lowering interest rates to help banks loan money out, the government can close the recessionary gap and get us out of a recession. So, like back in, I think, 2001, right around 9/11, I think a couple months before 9/11, we had a slight hiccup. So we had all the tech boom, right? All the dot-com boom, back in the early 2000s, late 90s, and the economy experienced a slight recessionary hiccup in the couple months in the middle of 2001. And so what Alan Greenspan did, who's the chairman of the Fed, his decision was, he was going to lower housing rates. And so he was going to make it easier for people to buy houses. And so once people buy houses, then, you have more money injected into the economy, and just, money from banks, which the banks get their money essentially from government, not necessarily always, but government, for those who don't know, the Fed will give banks short-term loans at extremely low interest rates. Like half the time, they're almost not even paying interest, and that just helps them lend. So that's what Greenspan did, and he had interest rates insanely low for housing prices, and that's what got us out of that slight little hiccup. And so the government can do this, but then the question becomes, well, what are going to be the impacts that it has on the future? So like with Greenspan lowering interest rates, it created the housing bubble, and then 5-6 years later, we felt the effects of that housing bubble when it popped. So I mean, this next bubble, if it's the student loan bubble, or if some sector of the economy just crashes. I mean, the service sector is a huge part of the economy, and if all of a sudden the service sector crashes, like, how do they fix it? What do they do? Because it didn't work in housing, so what's going to be the next? Granted, there's a lot of things that helped expedite that recession when it comes to the housing bubble. Traders, market securities, like they would clump together a bunch of mortgages and then sell them as called mortgage-backed securities, and a lot of the times they just completely overestimated how well people were going to be able to pay back on their loans. So all these loans that were just dead loans, essentially, that people couldn't pay for, they got grouped in and then sold as securities. And then when people finally realized, hey, these securities are shit, like no one's even paying their mortgage, then all of a sudden the prices of the securities fell, and then there's panic, and it caused the recession. So it'll be interesting though, man. What did Andrew, did he say specifically what he thinks is going to create the next downturn?
He did say a good amount of things that he believes will be like the root cause of it. I think like what he focused a lot of the conversation on, surprisingly. I mean, for me it was kind of surprising, but it probably shouldn't be, is like the trucking situation in America, because he was talking to a lot of these companies that like are working every day to try to get these trucks to be as efficient and effective as possible to transport cargo across highways. And he's like, right now, he's like, it's like a 99 or 98% effective rate. And he's like, obviously, you can't have 2% of cars that are crashing it, off the highway. You have trucks going off ramps, and you have trucks going off bridges. But like, he's like, once that gets to the point where it's 99% or even higher than that, like they're going to legalize that. And he said, they actually have a program right now where like they can actually beam somebody from like a call center or something like that into the truck, and they can manually drive the truck while they're actually inside a call center.
That's awesome.
So like if the truck is getting out of control.
Yeah, kind of like how the military controls drones.
Yeah, I mean, something like that, man. Maybe not exactly like that, but very, very, very close. But yeah.
An Xbox controller and drive a semi.
Yeah, do you like Grand Theft Auto?
Yeah.
But But yeah, like he was just talking about that, and it's not just the 3 million truckers in America that when they disappear that are going to have the biggest difference. It's the rest stops, it's the restaurants that they stop at, it's the small towns, it's the malls, it's where like all that stuff is going to shrink, and when they can't afford to, when they're not as profitable and they can't afford to stay open, like that's all going to go away, and that'll shrink so many other sectors of the economy, and that could be a major cause of the next recession, I believe. And that's what he was saying, and that really opened my eyes, because like I thought about that before, but not in the way that he was describing it, I guess.
It'll definitely be interesting to see with the rise of self-driving vehicles. It'll be interesting to see for sure how those sectors transition, like how the people working in those the drivers with the skilled driving permits. It'll be interesting to see what types of field of work they go into, and just kind of see what avenues that are even available for them to pursue right now. I mean, there's a lot of, unemployment is really low. There's a lot of jobs that aren't even filled right now. So it'll be interesting to see if like maybe there will be maybe the government could do like skilled trade programs where like 2 year skilled trade tuition programs or something like of that nature, and that would help again with deficit spending and funding universities that are injecting money into local communities. Like if Saginaw Valley State or University of Michigan, if they weren't in their respective cities, like neither city would be as flourishing as it is. And I mean, to say Saginaw is flourishing is one thing, but
right,
Ann Arbor is amazing. You go down there, and I mean, it's all because of the university down there, man. It pumps and it brings so much money. I mean, with when you have 100,000 people every other weekend during college football season coming down, to watch the game, like that really, really helps inject money into local economies. So maybe like trade programs will be able to help sort of like stimulate, with like, I don't know if the government decides to do anything like that with what we have in office right now and the people that we have in power. I don't foresee them allowing deficit spending to fix a recessionary gap. I see the conversation turning much more towards tax reform and cutting of government spending, and that they almost cancel each other out in a way, right? Because if you're cutting taxes and the government isn't spending as much first, the government isn't pumping money into the economy. Like people don't realize that. And granted, like people see it as a fallacy, but like the marginal propensity to consume, like government spends all the money it gets. People don't. That's a fact, right?
right,
So I mean, by government taxing you, like yes, it takes money out of your pocket that you could spend, but your marginal propensity to consume is so much lower than the government's. The government's is 100%. Like never has a government program been like, well, I'm sure maybe a handful that I don't know off the top of my head, but whenever a government program is created, right, it's very, very rare to see it be abolished. It's almost never, right? Once something is created in government, it's going to stay there for a very long time. And just like back in like the 30s, I want to say, there was a government program that was created in order to for farmers to give them electricity, right? I can't remember the name of it. I can't remember what department it's called. But essentially all they did was provide electricity to farmers in rural areas. And then eventually it transitioned to like telephone service, right? And then it's transitioned to like internet. And now essentially they don't even do anything, but they still exist. So it's it's like once a government program exists, it's really, really rare for it to go away.
mm-hmm.
And so I think that this administration will not really allow any sort of deficit spending. I think it'll be tax cuts and it'll be reducing government spending, and I think that would be a mistake. I think that the tax cuts would help people spend more, but in the same token, if there's a recession, people aren't really going to be willing to go out of their way and splurge on entertainment and things of that nature.
Right.
Back into the, they're going to be scared. They're going to be skeptical of spending their money. They're going to want to keep it and hold on to it, and that's
right. They're gonna have like 10. They're gonna have like 10 people for one Netflix account.
Right, dude. That's how it is now, dude.
They're gonna be splitting the cost like 20 ways.
Just glad Casey pays for YouTube TV, bro.
Does he? That's hilarious.
So yeah, man. Go ahead. Sorry.
Sorry, man. But no, like I don't want to like talk, like maybe spend too much time on this, but Andrew Yang was also talking about like his he had multiple different solutions for what happens when we lose a lot of these job sectors like the trucking industry and stuff like that. And one of the things he was talking about, like we talked about this in the first podcast a little bit, was the UBI, or like the basic income. But and then there was also a counter argument saying like these truckers make some of them make $100,000 a year, and now you're going to give them $1,000 a month, and that's going to fix a lot of the problems. And I don't know if that's a reliable solution for the long period of time. Like obviously it would help them short term, but it's almost like, would that prevent them from rioting and trying to park their trucks in the middle of the highways, trying to make the what I mean? Like they're just trying to basically cause as much chaos as possible because they know these automated trucks are going to just rob them of their livelihood.
Purposefully crashing into automated trucks, dude.
Purposely crashing and trying to make them seem like they're not. It's possible. Yeah. I know when the Industrial Revolution first took hold, there was a lot of riots and there's a lot of people trying to take these machines down because they saw them as something that was malevolent. But in the long term, like we can't have people driving trucks forever. I don't think it's probably not a smart thing.
Right, man. Like when cars first came about and all the rickshaw pullers were like, "This car's taking my job. I got to pull this rickshaw. Like what the hell?"
Right.
And I mean, maybe it is time for us to transition to where humans aren't just sitting there for 12 hours a day driving a truck aimlessly. But it'll be interesting to see like what kind of new skills they can acquire and how they can transition and what kind of work that they can find. I think a lot of it is just going to come down to re-education, skilled trades, for sure.
Right. That's probably going to be like a major solution. But yeah, it's just like the weird part is like a lot of these people are like older, like they're like in their 50s. You know what I mean? Like they might be like 50 to 55, and like I don't want to generalize, but I feel like a lot of these truckers went into this field because they felt education wasn't necessarily for them, and they wanted a job that was going to pay a lot of money right off the bat where they could support a family, and they jumped right into this field. And I don't know if like education for them is going to be something that they're like, they might have to, but like I don't know if they're going to be so willing to just, I'm going to go pursue my educational dreams now. Like I don't know if they actually have any pursuits they want to pursue, and I don't know if I don't know if you're going to be able to find I feel like most companies want to hire 25-year-olds and they don't want to hire 55-year-olds. There's a lot of college kids that are coming out that have a lot of these skills already, and I don't know if they're going to want to hire these people that have been trucking their entire life. And I think that's where we're going to need some social support.
Definitely. And it's funny, man, companies nowadays, they want 25-year-olds with the experience of 55-year-olds.
Energy of a 25-year-old, you know what I mean? Like, you got to be as naive as a 16-year-old, and you got to be as experienced as a 50-year-old. Like, it's just, I don't know. It's weird.
Definitely. The universal income, man, I don't know what my opinion is of it. I really don't. I should probably read more about it.
Right. Like, I think my opinion changed after watching the podcast a little bit. I think I'm a little more open to it. I'm still very skeptical. He's pulling numbers like where we're going to find the money. Like I think he calculated it'd be like 1.8 trillion or something like that, and that's a exorbitantly high amount of the budget that would be dedicated towards that. And
I mean, that's almost the entire budget, man. That's insane.
Right, and I don't know if it was difficult because he said a lot of that money will go back into the economy and people are going to be spending that money, and it'll grow the GDP of the country. And he said that like essentially like we're all going to be like he phrased it in a way of saying that, oh, this is not free money. These are you're all shareholders in the economy that is the United States, and we're basically giving you money to pump back into the United States in a weird way,
like reinvesting in your own business sort of thing.
Yeah, kind of. Like, but instead of your business, it's kind of yourself. Like he was just saying that, like, because like over time we're gonna have like it's inevitable. We're gonna have drones that are gonna deliver everything for you. You're gonna be able to go on your phone at 2 p.m. and you're gonna go on Amazon or whatever company you're using. There's gonna be multiple companies. I think Amazon's the first one, but I think all these other companies are gonna catch up to Amazon eventually.
Right.
And I think that you're going to go on your phone at 2 p.m. and you're going to click, I want to buy a container of whatever you want to buy, and it'll be at your house by 3 p.m. And a drone's going to deliver it on your front door, and that's inevitable, and that's going to be a lot cheaper, and there's not going to be a whole lot of human interaction, and it's going to get to the point where like where are we going to earn the money to actually get this stuff?
Right. What kind of jobs are we gonna work when? I mean, granted, that's like one sector, right? And
Right.
Milton Friedman always said like he always said all it does when automation takes over is it frees up human capital to pursue more productive tasks, right? Like if we're able to automate something, then that tells us that, we've decided that this job is easy enough that we can just have a factory do it and self-sustain, and we don't need people to do it. Like there are factories in China that don't even have lights because no people even work there. It's all robots. Do you know this?
No, I didn't know this at all, dude. They have full factories with no lights, and these robots just like seem to like they have like,
Yes,
oh my
just
god, dude.
robots.
I
It's
never
all
knew
ran.
that.
It's all automated. I think I was reading they employ like maybe a handful of people who they don't even go there and work really unless there's an issue. So they like just chill at home doing whatever, monitor the software from their laptop at home, and then if
Joe,
there's an issue, they need to go fix something, something breaks or whatever, but they're literally just completely self-sustaining factories. They run themselves without people, which is insane.
right?
Um, so it'll be, but I mean, the same thing was said during the Industrial Revolution and like the Agricultural Revolution and things of that nature. Like, what jobs are we gonna have? You know, like,
Hmm.
if no one's pulling the rickshaw, what are they gonna do? So it'll just the economy finds a way, man. Um, I don't know. The economy exists for us. We don't exist for the economy. So
100%.
it'll uh, it'll be interesting though, definitely. I don't even know like what job, I mean, how do I mean, 100 years ago, an Uber driver wouldn't have even been a thought. Like you couldn't even imagine. Like someone will come and pick you up and take you to your destination off of a phone. What is a phone?
What is a phone? What is a
Or Uber
destination?
Eats, like someone's gonna deliver food to your doorstep and you never even call and talk to anyone. Like that's magic. And so
Right.
a lot of the jobs that exist now didn't exist 100 years ago, and a lot of the jobs that are going to exist 100 years from now, they might not exist now, and so it'll just be it's fascinating though to study the past and the evolution, and then study and see what's going to try to go on in the future and try to predict the future. Um it's hard, man. I'm not very creative, so I can't really think of like new jobs.
Right. I mean, we could like sit here. It's like trying to think of a new color almost. Like I know all the colors of the rainbow, but like if I had to think of a brand new color that I've never seen before, like maybe like ultraviolet, maybe if your eyes were capable of seeing it, maybe you could like actually see a new color. But our brains are there's no way we can even comprehend that.
Right.
It's kind of the same way. But yeah, it's going to be really interesting, and I think there are a lot of answers that have yet to show themselves to us that they're out there, and over time they'll be more evident, and I think that's just inevitable.
Right. I mean, service sector will always be a huge part of the economy. I mean, people are always going to want other people to do things for them. It's just human nature, man. Like it's been like that since day one. And
Hmm.
so we'll see how that kind of uh, materializes in the future. What sort of new service industries there will be. Um, I mean, Amazon revolutionized the retail shopping experience. And I mean, if you would have said 20 years ago who's going to be the biggest retailer, you would say Walmart or Target, and now it's Amazon.
Right.
And so I mean, it's almost pointless in a way to try to predict what's going to happen, man, because like you said, it's out of our spectrum. We can't even really, I mean, unless you're some like savant from the future who, like, but I don't know, man.
Yeah,
The
it's really hard.
I think the universal income, man, like on that large of a scale would be so expensive, and I just don't know. And like theoretically though, with economies of scale, but like I don't know, man. I mean, what did you say? 1.6 trillion.
I think it was like 1.8 trillion, but like he sounded like he had the number somewhat figured out, but like it sounded like he wasn't even 100% sure about that. Like he was like, oh, around the area of 1.8 trillion in the ballpark.
So if they were gonna do that, they would almost have to have a form of federal sales tax, like how states have sales tax. Like in Michigan, you pay 6%. They would almost have to have a form of federal sales tax to bring that money back in and to pay people back out. Because I mean,
That's not a bad idea.
you can calculate everyone's I mean, you can't calculate everyone's, but like we can calculate the average marginal propensity to consume, right? Which and all that means is like for every dollar that you earn, what percent of that dollar are you going to spend? And I think it's like 18% or somewhere around there. Um, and so I mean, like we can calculate that, and I'm sure there are people that can do that math and figure out how much we can get back after giving. If you give out $1,000 to every person, they can calculate how much we'll get back.
Right.
What confidence interval and significance level, I don't know, but I'm sure pretty damn close. So it'll be interesting, man, for sure. Did you want to talk about the state of emergency?
Yes, dude. So I just got a notification on my phone today that Trump is planning on announcing a national emergency to try to get funding for this wall. And I read 2 weeks ago that the government was saying that he wasn't going to do this. They said this might be a last resort option, but he said that they said the odds are of him actually like going through with this plan was very very low, like the odds. And now it's pretty apparent that he's going to actually enact this and say it's an emergency, and he's probably going to get his funding. But I also heard that Congress can kind of like veto this and turn it down, or I don't know exactly how it works, but
Was it like a 2/3 vote or something?
yeah, I think it's like a vote where they have to vote and say, hey, this is actually this is not really an emergency, even though some people can make the argument that it might be an emergency. But
Yeah, man. I don't think it's an emergency. Do you? Like, honestly, I mean, majority of us, 99% of the people that live in this country shouldn't even be here if we want to get real, you know?
right, dude.
I think Native Americans make up about 1% of the population. And
Hmm.
so if we want to get real and technical, 99% of us got to go, and I'm one of them,
Right,
you know?
man.
And
I'm one of them too.
immigrants built this country, you
Hmm.
know? And everyone like, oh, El Chapo and like the Mexican like, yes, that's going to happen. That's going to happen no matter what. They have enough money to where they can get around a stupid wall. They don't give a shit. They have planes. They have submarines, dude. This guy
Right.
has submarines that are so full of cash that they're like barely like able to come to surface. Like he's got like billions of dollars in cash just stashed away everywhere. And
Right.
so it's like you're trying to like are you trying to say that you want to build a wall to keep the bad element, like the criminal element, out, like people that connected to the cartel, because that doesn't matter. They don't. That's not going to affect them. Like it
Hmm.
might make them have to spend a little bit more money, but that just means that you know meth is going to cost a little bit more. Like I
Shouldn't
don't.
go up like 5% or 10%. You know.
The only thing that you're really like when I lived in Phoenix, um, a lot of my friends, man, they're Hispanic, and sometimes their parents were illegal. They were here illegally, man. And like hearing these stories, man, like how much these people struggle just to get here because they want a better life for the children that they have, and to see how much they'll go through and how hard they'll work. There's this really bad stigma that's been circulating the last decade or so, man, about the Mexican community, and they're fantastic people, man. They're so nice. They're so kind, man. Like when I lived in Phoenix, me and my dad would be, just walking down the street or riding our bikes or whatever, and he would just, there'd be a group of Mexican dudes just chilling, grilling in their driveway or whatever, and he'd just walk up, hey amigo, uno más cerveza por favor, and they'd be like, hey cabron, like, and they'd give him a beer, dude, like, and they would, and he would chill and talk with them, and they're so kind and just friendly. Granted, you're always gonna have shitty people, and they
Right.
shouldn't be stigmatized based on the cartel. Like, if every white person was just seen as a Nazi, and it's absurd, man. If we
Right,
thought
man.
if we thought every black person was a blood or a crip, like it's retarded. We shouldn't be stigmatizing people based on what little subgroups of people who just happen to have the same color skin as them do. Like it's
Right.
shit, man. It's so stupid.
It's like
Um,
we're brought up to like not judge a book by its cover, but then like everybody in society is just so normalized that hey, we're gonna judge you based on what you look like. And like, did you bring me up to like not want to do this, and you're doing it now? Like, what is going on here?
so the people who are afraid of undocumented immigrants coming here and taking their jobs, like I'm sorry, but if you have a job that is so easy that someone who can't even speak English can come here and take it from you, then maybe you need to train yourself and have some skills to have a better job. Like I don't understand how that's the immigrants' fault. And you say, well, they'll work for less. That's the only bargaining chip that they have. You're a fluent native English speaker. you know. And granted, a lot of people from Mexico speak great English, you know. I mean, they live right next to the United States. They have to speak great English, you know. But
Mhm.
I mean, the people who are worried about this, I just concentrate on yourself, you know. A
Right.
person from Mexico isn't just going to be able to come here and take your job if you're an outstanding employee, you know. I mean, imagine how hard that is. And it's literally the only bargaining chip that they have is that they'll work for less. And I mean, your gripe shouldn't be with the person who's coming here trying to make a living. Your gripe should be with the employer who's willing to hire people illegally. That's where your problem should be.
Right.
If you're in a union and you're worried about people who are undocumented coming here and taking your jobs, you should be worried about the people that are employing you. Because if they're going to fire you or lay you off or whatever, or you have to go on strike because they're hiring people who will work for less than you, and you're like, that's I mean, it's not the immigrant's problem.
Right. And it's like people always want to build the border after they're already in the country. You know, they're like, all right, wait till I'm in the country and then build the wall. And like, we just think that like we were born here, that like this land is ours, and you know, like we've been here forever. We've only been here for a very short amount of time too. So like, I don't see the argument that like now we should build the wall up and we should cut everybody out because we're a nation of immigrants and like that we pride ourselves on that. And then now we want to just like, I don't know, we're a melting pot that we're trying to close ourselves off, and I think that's a bad idea. I don't think we should let a bunch of illegal people in the country and let them live here, but I think we should like we should allow people that are trying to find a better life for themselves. We should allow them a route and a path to like attain that. You know what I mean? That's not too much to ask for. They're not asking for the world. They're asking for peace, food, and like just a spot to have a family and to just live their life.
Chance to make a living, man. A chance to provide for their children for the future. But like, I want Americans to think about something, man. Like, imagine, right, that tomorrow Justin Trudeau was like, yeah, Americans, you can no longer come to Canada. We don't want you. You're loud, you're rude, you're obnoxious, you're fat, you're ugly. No one wants you here. You're gross, you're criminals, you're rapists, you're murderers, you're thieves. You can't come to Canada anymore. How would that make you feel? That would probably make you feel pretty shitty
It
because
would.
a majority of Americans aren't shitty people, right?
Right.
And so it's terrible that our government, right? Not even like uneducated citizens who are disgruntled because they're worried about losing their jobs to these people, but our own government, people in power in our country are saying these things about an entire group of people, and it's just not true. And it's just unfounded claims, and it's racism and bigotry, and it's abhorrent, and it's disgusting, and it just makes you wonder, how could anyone with such a poor view of other people be so successful? Like, how can, because really our success is only measured in a way by how well we're able to get along with everyone that we work with, that we're surrounded with. If you're an asshole, you know, no one's going to want to promote you. You know, so it makes you wonder, like, how have these people become so successful? How have people voted for these disgusting people?
Right.
You know? And granted, not all people in government are terrible. I'm sure some of them have great intentions, but we shouldn't judge government based on its intentions. We should judge government based on its results. And if this government is saying that it wants to keep all the illegal immigrants out because they're murderers and thieves and rapists and terrible people, it's shitty.
It is. It is. It's totally just grouping those people together and just saying, hey, you guys all look similar. You guys are all not allowed in this country. I mean, most of you probably are just regular people that are trying to escape where you're from and trying to escape tyranny. But you know what? You're not allowed in this country because you look like someone that might hurt me, or you look like someone that might want to bring drugs in this country. You
Right.
look like that guy. You know,
And
so sorry.
and cheaper labor is a great thing. It reduces prices. Like if you have people who are willing to work for less, granted, you know, we have minimum wages, but Milton Friedman touched on this back in the 80s. People who worked the vineyards in California were upset because people were coming from Mexico and taking their jobs and working for much less than them. And they shouldn't be upset because it allows you, right, to to pursue, like, because if you're working in that type of field, right, you obviously don't really have skills, and it gives you a chance to learn new skills and to develop a trade and to find yourself a better place in the economy, right? Like that should be like your motivation, while simultaneously making wine cheaper in this example. Now a lot of it is like fruits and vegetables and stuff that they pick, um, and I mean, I think it's a good thing, man. Like I don't know, it lowers the price level in those sectors where they come and they take over jobs.
Yeah, I get that a lot, man. Like I'm torn because like I don't think that like I'm against all forms of labor that people are not compensated fairly, but like who's to say what a fair compensation is, you know?
Well, then that's back to my bargaining tool, man. Like that's the only thing that they have to negotiate with. You know, they may or may not speak the language. They weren't raised here. They may not be similar with societal norms, things of that nature. They may not fit in well in the workplace. Granted, every person that I went to school with, who may or may not have been an illegal alien, was super cool. They were dope as fuck, nicest people, and they just want to belong, man. They just want to feel welcomed. And to sit here and say like you're disgusting, you're a murderer, to someone who just wants to fit in is terrible. We should be welcoming people here. We should be wanting people to come here, man. The reason that we're so successful, that the United States has been economically so successful, is, in my opinion, is because it's so diverse, man. It's the giant melting pot, bro. Like, our biggest export, one of our biggest exports is our culture. And we've talked about this before, how people consume culture, but other countries consume our culture, man. And it's one of the main reasons why the United States is, I mean, maybe not anymore, but for a long time was revered around the world, was our culture. People wanted to be like Americans. Americans were cool.
Right.
And I mean, in parts of Europe and in Scandinavia and in Asia, they call them American parties, where they get like their solo cups and they have hamburgers and like they grill and stuff, and
Wait,
it's all
where is this at?
everywhere, dude. You haven't seen these
I think
so
I've
that
heard of them before actually, but like I think it's pretty
yeah,
cool.
they call them American party, and it's like the solo cups, man. Like they see them in the movies because they see them in movies, and they think it's cool, and they want to be like they want to be like an American movie star. And I think if every person in our culture, or every person in Hollywood looked the same, we wouldn't have the same effect. I think that our diversity is really what sets us apart from the rest of the world. I mean,
Right.
because when you look at the culture that like the Japanese or the South Koreans, the culture they export, man, it's anime, but like realistically, most countries, everyone looks the same. Realistically, they're all oh, what's the word I'm looking for, man?
They're all like they're all like I don't know.
They're all the same. They're all the same race for the most
Right.
part.
Right. They're all like
Homogeneous. It's
yeah,
just
that's
all
the best word
homogeneous
for it.
populations, and that's what really separates the United States from the rest of the world. And
It's
that's a
like
great
give us
thing.
your sick, give us your poor, give us your desperate, give
Exactly.
us the people that that don't feel like they don't feel like they fit in where they're at right now, and let's allow them an opportunity to try to make a life for themselves, and let's like it's just such an open country, man. Like the idea of America is just so great. Like all these people escaping tyranny and they're trying to come to this land where everything's free, and obviously it's not going to be an easy life for yourself, but it's the idea of it is like you can try your best to try to achieve the quintessential dream. Like you just come here and you can accomplish that, and I feel like that's harder and harder, and it's almost like
Slipping
a
away.
pipe dream today, and I feel like people are kind of losing faith that they could ever accomplish that, because I think it's just getting the the water's getting muddled, or it's getting to the point where it's blurry, and people are not able to see like the direction of their life clearly anymore, and it's gonna get like sometimes you have to go through the depths of hell to try to get to where you can get to a place where it's similar to heaven,
Definitely, man. You have to experience the bad to know what the good is.
right?
Um, but yeah, man. I think it's all a joke. I think the wall is a joke. I think that we should be welcoming people here. We should reform immigration, make it easier, streamline it, make it easier for people to become citizens. Um, I mean, like my family, right? Like my dad's side of the family. To the best of my knowledge, from what I know, I don't know a lot about my family, but they immigrated here from Poland during World War II, right? They escaped the German invasion of Poland, and they were able to come here and work and provide and create a life for future generations. Same thing with on my mom's side of the family. They came here from Italy during the same time period. My grandpa was born in Italy, so it would have been after, like right at the end of World War II, is
Wow,
when he had
that's
immigrated here.
insane.
Yeah. Um, so yeah, man, like we're all immigrants. Maybe, like we did. I mean, we all originated from Africa, realistically.
Right.
So I mean, for any one person to say that someone doesn't belong on any random piece of land, like who are you to make claims like that? This isn't your
Right.
earth, You don't own this. No one owns this.
Dude, we're all from the earth, man. We all came from the earth. Mother Earth is our mom. Like there's a reason they call it Mother Earth because it gave birth to all of us, man, and it gave us a chance to live a life that's like it's beautiful and it's chaotic and it's full of suffering in a lot of ways, man. But like I would rather experience this life than not experience anything at all. Obviously, 100%.
Right. I mean,
It's
if you're not
definitely not all
experiencing,
good. I'm not saying this life's perfect because there's a lot of imperfections, but you can see the beauty in the imperfections. You can see the possibilities, and you can see it's all inspiring in a way.
definitely, man. It's the only life we've got, man. We gotta live it,
Right,
and we shouldn't be living it being negative towards other people. We should, you know, all try to culminate a successful life on this rock.
right. And like I say a lot of this stuff sometimes, but I feel like there's a lot of times in my life where I don't always follow my own advice, man. There's times where like I'll give somebody the cold shoulder, or I'll just not. I need to be more upfront with people and be more honest and be more genuine and be more like open and kind. And like sometimes when people when people do things to you that seem like they're malevolent, man, maybe they have good intentions, but maybe they come across as trying to, maybe the result is detrimental in a way. But like their intentions were good, and sometimes you have to look at their intentions and appreciate their intentions in a way, and realize that we're all faulty creatures, and maybe their view of you is different than the way that you see the view of yourself, and you have to realize that there's different perspectives and whatnot like that.
Definitely, man. Dude, when I'm driving, I'm terrible. I hate everyone. You're an asshole. You're an asshole. Oh, you're nice. It's like, yeah,
You
no.
get the finger. You get the finger. All you motherfuckers get the finger.
Right, man. Well, like, when you got someone in front of you going 10 miles an hour and they don't use their turn signals, and then you're like, oh, you fucking asshole. And then you look and they're 85 years old and
Dude.
gross and steering you, and it's like, fuck, I feel terrible now. Like, yeah, I know you don't know that I just called you an asshole, but I did, and now I feel bad about it. But you don't even know, and it's
Right.
just like,
Right, man.
But dude, there are definitely times where I feel like I can be a better person to the people around me, man. And it's just like, man, there's a lot that goes into the human emotion, a lot of that goes into the human psyche, and to what extent of it is at our conscious control. That's for neuroscience to end up determining. But
Right.
physiology, man, there are so many different chemicals that your body needs that if you're just missing a couple, they can really mess up the way you function.
Right, man. And it's amazing, man, that like the biochemistry and what goes into like what you put in your body, what your body has to produce the chemicals that it needs to function. And sometimes people don't get the necessary nutritional um, intake that they need, and sometimes like that causes a major imbalance. And you know, some people just they literally just their diet's poor. They're eating fast food all the time. They go home and they drink, and they're I mean, I'm not pointing fingers here. I think
I'm pointing fingers. That's
you're the
me.
one that's pointing fingers,
Oh,
my friend. But
dude, I had
but
pizza tonight. Like, come on.
yeah, man, I had Chinese food, so it wasn't much better. But no, man, I think taking responsibility for your internal self and then taking responsibility for your surroundings and your external self are both very important. Sometimes you need to, I think sometimes you need to it's not clearly obvious what you have to focus on first. Sometimes you have to focus on. I think it always comes down to focusing on your internal first. But sometimes if your external is not the best, you don't have the motivation to make yourself healthy.
Right, man. I don't know, man. I understand and recognize the importance of working on yourself as a person, but at the end of the day, I'm a lazy sack of shit, dude. Like, and it's hard. It's hard to stay motivated enough to wanna be a good. I feel like being a good person takes energy, man. It's so easy to be shitty, and I
Right.
feel like keeping your composure all the time and being kind to everyone and courteous, and it it takes a toll, man. Like I consider myself a very courteous person. I feel like I'm nice to strangers, except for when I'm driving. Noted that.
Right. That's
But
just
I,
common.
right, but I feel like and it's wearing mentally, and it takes a toll, man. Being nice to everyone, especially when people are shitty to you,
Hmm.
But being the bigger person and being kind, it takes a lot of effort, and I recognize how important how important it is to try to be nice to everyone, and yet there are still times where I slip, and it's so, man, it's hard, you know.
Right, man. There's a lot of times where like you'll say something or like you'll like you don't intentionally mistreat somebody, but then all of a sudden like you'll be laying in bed at night before you fall asleep, and that conversation or that interaction pops in your head, and all of a sudden you're like, I really could have changed that. That could have been a totally different interaction, and it was partly my fault, and it wasn't all the way my fault. It was partly their fault too, but like it's just a flaw in the human biological system, I think, where sometimes you just act on impulse.
Definitely, man. I'm a very impulsive person. Half the time when I get fast food, it's on impulse. I'm driving by and I'm like, fuck, Taco Bell sounds so good. Let me
Right,
go get
man.
this Baja Blast real quick and then go chill at home. But it takes effort to have a clean, healthy diet and to be a nice person. It's fucking tiring, man. And so
Right.
I can't blame people for being shitty, but
But
I
dude,
think
I
if
was sorry to cut you off, but I was watching this um part of this documentary or something like that, and these guys were talking about the one guy was a homebody, and he was talking about he's like I go home, I go to work, I do what I do, I go home and I enjoy time with my family, I don't go outside all that much, and the one guy's like so the one guy was like so you don't enjoy sunsets, and the guy's like what is it about sunsets that you feel like that I'm missing out? Like, just I can go online and look up a sunset. Like, why do you feel like I need to go see those all the time? I mean, I've seen them before. They're not that special. And the other guy's like, well, I feel like when I go outside and I look at the sky and it's beautiful, like there's like something that I'm getting from that, like an essence or like a something that's it's like nourishment for my soul. And he's like, I feel like if I don't get that, I don't always feel balanced. And then it was a weird thing where I don't think either one of those people were wrong because they both had their views. And the one person could go outside and watch the sunset and they wouldn't feel any different, and the one person almost feels like they have to be outside and getting that just like the views of the earth and different perspectives to actually feel balanced in his life. And I think that just goes to show you that there's a lot human beings differ in a lot of ways, but they're also very similar. Like some people just need different things to feel okay.
right, man. Have you ever? So we've had a lot of snow lately. Have you ever gone out in the morning and shoveled when like the
Oh,
sun's rising or right after the sun's risen? And all the snow, like in my neighborhood, it's like untouched sometimes, And not lately, but like in the past, I've done this where like you go outside and you're shoveling, and it's just that cold winter air is revitalizing in a way, in a weird way. You take a deep breath, and it kind of, I don't know, man, it kind of awakens you a little bit. You kind of feel this boost, like you feel good, and it's so peaceful. Like I remember growing up, going walking to the bus stop when we would have, and I'd be pissed, because we have school. But I remember, like even at 10 years old, 10, 11 years old, walking to the bus stop to go to middle school, and looking at the snow and the trees and everything just caked in this like beautiful, glimmering, shiny reflection of the sunlight, and everything was so peaceful. And it's just, even then I was able to appreciate that. And it people definitely vary, man, and many people may not feel the same way. But I think if everyone finds what they appreciate and they're able to pursue that, and it helps them become a better person, then I think the world would be a better place, man. And going outside and shoveling in the morning, it sounds like shit when you're laying in bed.
hmm.
It's warm. I'm with my blankets. I'm chilling.
I'm with my blanket. It's cold up there. It's warm in here. I'm comfortable, man. I'm cozy. I don't want to get out of this bed for the rest of the day.
Then you go out there and you do it, and you're out in nature, and you're shoveling, and it sucks. You're shoveling, but at the same time, it's peaceful, and it's relaxing in a way. If you don't stress yourself out about I have to shovel this snow off my driveway right now, but if you're just out there shoveling, and you appreciate just the fact, like, everything that had to happen in order for you to be there in that moment. Like all the water that had to evaporate and then freeze and then fall. All the different things that you've done in your life to make you decide at that moment to go outside and shovel. Everything that's culminated, it's been through billions of years. The universe has existed for billions of years, and in a way, everything that's ever happened has led you to do that in that moment, right? Like a form of determin. I don't know if you're a big fan of philosophical determinism or not. I kind of am. But in a way, man, like everything in your entire life culminated for you to decide to do that thing in that moment, for you to decide to go and see Niagara Falls, for you to decide to go to the Grand Canyon and just experience what there is out in nature.
Right. And, like the amount of times for like the opportunity for you to actually like meet the end of your life, or like something could have killed you that didn't kill you, and now you're out there, now you're able to see that. You appreciate that more, man. There's a lot of times where I've been in car accidents and I've been in a lot of different things in my life where it's changed my view on a lot of things, man. Like I've been in like a couple car accidents, one that was really bad, and there's been times where like my brakes would go out of me in my car when I was driving my old car that was not reliable, and like there was times where like I had my life flash before my eyes, and like that could have easily been the end for all I knew. And I'm still here today, and I get to wake up in the morning and do every time I wake up in the morning and I have my cup of coffee. I don't care what I have to do the rest of the day. I just appreciate that, I appreciate, like, sometimes I'll wake up and I'm like, I'm not supposed to be here. I'm supposed to be dead. Like, this is just like I said, like the last podcast, we're like talking about house money, man. I feel like I'm still riding on that house money, and like everything that is going to happen for the rest of my life, like there's a good chance that this never had to happen. Obviously, I never had to be born. I could have easily died in several different times in my life, and I'm still here, man. So at the end of the day, you just got to appreciate that.
Definitely, man. You can't take life for granted. You've got to enjoy it and open your eyes and relax and experience the human endeavor, the human adventure. You've got to appreciate it, because if you don't appreciate your life, then what can you really appreciate?
Right. All right, Nick, I got to bring up one last point, dude. So this is going to tie into everything we just talked about. So I think I texted you like last week about talking about the web of Indra. All right. So basically, this is like, if you think of humanity as like a giant web, right? And everyone's got like an isolated point on that web. And every time you decide to do something, you send a ripple out in this web. And then it affects everybody that's around you, right? I think that if somebody sends a ripple your way that you're not expecting and you don't know how to handle it, that can really disrupt your life. And I think that can really send you off your course. And sometimes people panic and they freak out. But I think that the web of Indra is so important because it gives you a chance to sometimes like getting thrown off your path is something that you need to have happen in your life. Sometimes the best thing to never happen to you is the best thing. Like sometimes you wanted something to happen so bad and then it didn't happen, and then down the road you look back and you're so thankful that it didn't happen because you see what could have actually happened, like what you kind of see in your head how that would have played out, and you're like, that would have been a bad thing, but at the time that's all I wanted. That's everything that I ever wanted. And now look at what would be my life if that would have happened, and I'm so thankful for that. And there's a lot of times in your life where like someone will, like someone or some force will come in and throw you completely off your path, and you're so miserable because you're like, I'm supposed to be doing this thing, and now I can't do it anymore. And that could be like somebody getting a sports injury and now they can't play the sport that they love their entire life, or that could be 1,000 different things. But it's almost like you gotta keep playing with the hand you're dealt, because you get your king taken away and now you're lost and now you don't know what to do. But you still have other cards in your hand, and all you can do for the rest of your life is play the best hand you can with those cards. And who's to say if you're ever going to be successful? But like that ties back into the web of Indra. Just you're going to have all these ripples in your life because there's like other people and they have different intentions, and there's all kinds of different intentions that are cross weaving each other, and all you are is a little dot, and you have in your head, in your own psyche, this is how my life's supposed to be, and that never is going to be how your life is, because there's all these different, it's a giant web of everybody else thinking different ways, and you're far from the only person that's having an effect on that web. And the web of Indra it's way more complex than that, but that's a very simplified version of it. But
That's fascinating, man. That Yeah, and I mean, to tie into that in a sort of scientific way, neuroscience tells us that our brains, they have these patterns that will form, or these neurotransmitters that will fire together during certain things, right? And they literally impact the way that you think, right? And so, in a way, the web of Indra is almost like this sort of ripple being sent through a collective consciousness where it affects every little thing that you're ever involved in. Anything you ever have experienced in your entire life has affected the way that you think. That's why everyone thinks differently, because everyone experiences things differently and everyone interprets them differently. And it's that's founded in neuroscience. Like, it's a fact now, what you were just saying. I mean, every experience that you have is developed who you are as a person. It's just a fact. It's your brain, and that's why I'm a believer, I guess, I don't know, in determinism, right? That every action before you has created the next action that you will do, because every action that you've just experienced, everything in your past, it's all led up to what you are now in that moment, and that's all going to impact your decision. And so I think that's fascinating, man. I've never heard of that either until you had texted me about that. And I didn't look it up, man. I just wanted you to blow my mind, and here I am. I'm mind blown.
Well, I'm glad you're mind blown, man. Because like I remember when I first found out about the web of Indra, I was like, at first I was like, I didn't really give it a lot of thought, and then I heard a different person explain it to me in a different way, and then it really made a lot of sense. Like, it's just, we're just a giant spider web, man. That's all we are, and every single ripple will impact the rest of your life. And it's like if you had like if you were born in this world and you have a one-dimensional look, and this is what my life's gonna be, and this is how it's gonna happen, you're setting yourself up for the biggest disappointment of all time, because there's such a small chance it's never gonna go that way. And it's good to have goals, but like you gotta realize that like it's like life is a breeding ground for disruption.
Right. There are way too many variables that are out of our control, and it's to think that anything is definitive is sort of ignorant in a way. But hey, in the same token, man, like, if you're one-minded, you're really narrow-minded, and you only think your life should have one set path. I mean, maybe all your past experiences have led you to believe that you should only have that one set path at the
Right.
same time. But I mean, maybe your future experiences will change that.
Right.
That's for your brain to decide. It's for your neural chemistry to decide.
Because like I'm pretty sure a lot of those, like the most successful people in humanity, probably were had that thought, like this is my only path that I can pursue. I feel like I'm confident in that, and like it's a mixture of luck and skill and being conscientious, in a way. Like, just it's a mixture of all that stuff. Like, it was it
Timing,
was it was good because they had that thought, this is the only thing I can do, and it just like they were very fortunate that they were actually good at that one thing.
right? Timing, man. Mark Cuban, his entire fortune was all timing.
Timing.
Yeah, I mean, really, everyone's entire fortune has just been. Granted, he worked insanely hard for what he has, but it was, in a way, it was luck. Like, his final break was luck and timing, and had he been born a year later, he wouldn't be where he is today. You could say that about anybody. If Bill Gates was born a year later, he probably might not be Bill Gates. Someone might have beat him to being Bill Gates. They might have been there first.
Right.
And I don't know, man.
But dude, I saw a picture today of like I don't know what satellite it was, but like it was 4 billion miles away from Earth or something like that. I don't know exactly how far it was away, but I remember it took a picture or something like that, and it showed Earth as like a giant, like a small little pixel, and it was just saying like every single dictator, every single celebrity, every single time that you woke up in the morning, like everything that's ever happened throughout human history, man, happened on this little floating rock in space, dude. And this is all you've ever known. To you, this is everything, but to the universe, this is nothing. You're a dust mite, and the amount of dust mites that are happening in the universe that think that they're so important that's all they ever know, man. There's definitely other planets where there's life, and there's they think that they're so important, and they have their own celebrities and their own culture. It's just it puts everything in perspective in a way. I don't know, and
Definitely.
it was just taking a picture. It was just like I think it said like Happy Valentine's Day, like blah blah blah. Here's a cool message. I think Carl Sagan had a quote in it, which is pretty cool. But
That's Yeah, man. You'll have to show me that when we wrap this up. Yeah, man, it's been a great podcast, dude. I've enjoyed our conversation tonight. This has been
Nick,
awesome.
dude, I had a really good time. Nick, I love you, dude. I love doing podcasts with you, man.
For sure, man. The feeling is mutual, as
Dude,
always.
it's fun, man. I feel like we've already done way more of these, and this is only our third one ever, which is crazy. I feel like we've at least done 5 or 6 now, but
Right.
this is 3, dude. So everybody, thank you for tuning in. This has been episode 3 of Two Nicks in a Pod. Until next time, we're both gonna have these fancy Marantz turret mics and webcams, and we're gonna change the world one podcast at a time. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everybody.